Hello and welcome. We're here today to talk about the expansions to Terraforming Mars. And I just wanted to open up with I found this old promo photo and game release in summer 2016. Talk about a while back. And we've come a long ways. We've had 5 expansions since then. And yeah, people have been asking the questions, what's good? How does it change the game? Which one is for me? And I kind of want to address that. So how the different expansions play, first of all, and then follow that up with who are they for and what role do they kind of fit in the family. And I'm going to go through them in a chronological order because that's the order that I experienced them as they additively compacted onto the game. I'll give you guys kind of what the popular opinions are. There's lots of great written material on like the Reddit and BGG, and I'll try and let you know what is the popular opinions versus what's just my opinion. There's a couple of things that we vary on. So, without further ado, let's just jump into it. I'm just going to snap right away to a picture of Hellas. So the first expansion that ever came out was Hellas and Elysium. So this is the Hellas board, and it's a pretty simple expansion. All it does is adds 2 more maps that you can play on in Terraforming Mars. And Hellas, this one here, the Southern Wild, is definitely a wider change. Like there's different things like you've never seen place a thing here to put an ocean down. You've never seen scooping up heat. The fact that all of these oceans are clustered together means more adjacencies with themselves, but less like on the original board, one line of oceans, which people would just greenery along. The fact that you're forcing things up here. And then what makes it really interesting is the fact that they changed out the milestones and awards. Okay, so down here we have all kinds of different awards. So things about placing things in the bottom, getting certain tags, getting the production of your energy up. I don't want to go into the specifics of them, but in general, it changes the things that you're rushing to do instead of always just being like, oh, I got to build cities and greeneries. I've got to, get a bunch of building tags or something like that. So that's a lot of fun. And then they added in awards over here that again are different. It's specifically looking for greeneries. It's specifically looking for space tags and stuff like that. This expansion adds no more cards to the base game. It just adds this. But I think that having a rotation of maps really does a lot to keep it fresh. I have a way lower resolution photo of Elysium. I am so sorry. But it also changes things up. There's this whole area in the bottom of the map, and one of the awards have to do with building things specifically in that bottom quadrant. You have a section that gives you a triple plant back. The oceans are arranged in such a way that there's also an award called Estate Dealer, which is where you need to be beside oceans at the end of the game. So it adds in a bunch of things. And then again, the milestones are different, which is fun. And small point, which is a lot of fun. Elysium, you can't read it in this photo, but it says the other side of Mars. So they've literally mirrored, what side the heat track is on and stuff. Just little things like that, which is a lot of fun. And, if you're crazy like me and my family, maybe you'll play a game here or there where you have, both boards and you have to do TR on both of them. But I'm hoping to get more into third-party / house rule stuff you can do at the end of the video when we get there, which I should have let off with. But yeah, that's it for Hellas and Elysium. I'm gonna bring it back to I'm gonna bring it back to Hellas because it looks better. But yeah, so this changes the game in that it keeps it fresh. It changes up the milestones and things you're trying to accomplish early and your longer horizon things that you're trying to get later on in the game, that they're different enough that it does definitely have an impact. And this is definitely for everyone. This is a game that does not, or an expansion that does not add an extreme level of complexity by any means. It doesn't even add a moderate level. It's just, here's the new board. If you understand the first board, there's only a small smidgen. You have to go through the milestones and awards because they're different now and a little stuff like that. But otherwise, adds so much to the game. Cannot recommend enough. If you're going to be playing Terraforming Mars repetitively, you're going to have repeat plays. Having different maps is just fantastic. All right. Welcome. Now we're into Preludes. Don't get blown away by what you see on screen, but I've loaded up the game in Tabletop Simulator, which allows you to play it digitally, moving the cards around, whatever, which is where I do a lot of my Terraforming Mars these days. But I still have all of these expansions in physical form, so I don't feel too bad about it. But yeah, so what are we looking at here? I've laid out a whole bunch of these new pink cards and a couple other things. These are all the things that are included in the Preludes box. I'm just going to lead off straight off with this is hands down the most highly rated and recommended expansion in Terraforming Mars. I personally agree wholeheartedly with that. It really speeds up the start of the game. It gets people off running, and you know the lore or the background to what this represents is these cards represents the things that your company was doing before Terraforming Mars the board game starts to get ready for taking on this endeavor. It's like little side projects or things that you were doing ahead of time, and what makes your company, apart from being a specific company when you get to choose at the start of the game, having a little bit more flavor and making it play differently time and time again. It also adds in so I'll just talk about more about that for a second. It lets you take 4 of these pink cards at the start of the game that you draw along with your corporations and other cards, and of the 4, you get to pick 2 that you get to bring along with you. So you could imagine, oh, this one here, I'll just make it very large, will reduce your money income by 1 step and give you 2 plant income. And it gives you a plant tag. So if you're someone like Ecoline that really benefits from this would be a great prelude for you, where maybe something that's more involved with heat generation, you know, it doesn't have to synergize with your company, but it gives you a little bit of something on the side. Other ones are a little bit more drastic in that you get to lay down 2 oceans at the start. Some of them allow you to dig through the deck and get cards that have specific tags, as long with giving you resources to start. Some of them, like Huge Asteroid, will give you 3 heat bumps at the very start of the game. Pop, pop, pop. We're off running. So if you have cards that have requirements or something, bam, good stuff. You know, some of them will even give you Jovian and Science tags. And they've also introduced this new question mark tag, which is a wild tag, which can basically be a tag of your choice when you're doing something on your turn. So it can really enhance and make your actions even stronger. So that's a lot of fun. And then it also adds in a handful of corporations that do a bunch of different and fun things. Honestly, like looking at this line of corporations, I didn't realize these were the ones from Preludes. They're good corporations. They're ones that I'd really enjoy playing and are a lot of fun. They spice things up. And then there's a handful of cards that also add to the game for sure. I really like Space Hotels for income, but you have to have Earth tags. But I love Earth tags. You know, I have a huge bias towards that. Point Luna is probably one of the strongest corporations in the game if you have Earth tags. So, you know, all in, this package is very highly rated. People really like it. It adds a lot of flavor to the game. It's like setting off running. Like it's so surprising to play Terraforming Mars without Preludes after having them for so long, because it really just cuts out that second generation where most people are collecting a little bit of income and can't really do anything. No, in this one, even for new players, it's all concepts that you already understand, and it lets you build your engine in such a way to either shore up where you're weak or really synergize with where you're strong. Again, I personally highly recommend this for everyone, and this is definitely an expansion that you want to add as soon as you're comfortable with the base mechanics of how it plays. You know, as soon as you move out of just the base cards from the base game into the corporate era cards, which is like the full game, I say you throw in Preludes. Even when teaching new groups of people how to play Terraforming Mars, I'll often include Preludes right out the gate, because it gives people an idea of how kind of productions work and how these things work, and it's just a whole lot of fun. Highly recommended. Everyone should have this expansion for Terraforming Mars for sure. If you're looking where to start, you definitely need to consider Hellas and Elysium, because if you're going to be playing a number of times, having that board variety is good. But no, having Preludes is huge on the list. Huge win. Like, I like to describe this expansion as Asmodee, like publisher of the board game. They did it right. They did good. So anyway, okay, very quick correction. I said Asmodee. They're the publisher of the digital app. It's Fricks Games by Jacob. I can't pronounce his last name. Free Access or something like that. But yes, this is a great one. Good stuff. Let's move on to the next expansion. Hey, welcome back to Venus next. I didn't know how to say that without it sounding weird. But basically, this is or the first at least, this little board right here, plus all the cards I'm going to show you in a second, is the black sheep of the Terraforming Mars expansions. I've had nothing but positive things to say, but this one here, I have to admit, is, as far as popularity goes online, not rated as highly or nearly as highly as the other expansions. It adds this little board here. I'm going to stick to showing it off in the digital form just because I think it comes across a little bit more clear. There is 15 steps, 2% apiece, of air scrapping or scraping. I still haven't figured it out. I've heard it so many ways, both ways. And basically, Venus is just so freaking hot because it has basically runaway greenhouse effects on it, and you're trying to reduce the level of greenhouse gases in the thing, and it allows you to build cities on Venus, just a couple of spots, as well as a city on Mercury and a city on the moon or Luna. You know, it also adds a standard project. Good stuff. What does this all mean? Why am I explaining it? Well, basically, this little sideboard expansion to the main event that comes across with all these new projects and a handful of new corporations is a very good expansion at adding a little bit more Terraforming Mars with, you know, toes in the water complexity. But if you understand how the base game works, well, basically now there's a fourth metric. There is these 15 steps of Venus I just talked about that's going to get in, you know, the real version, one of those white, like I like to call sugar cubes that gets to move across, and you're going to track the bumps on that, and that will give you terraforming rating, TR, as you do it. Very notably, though, this is not required to end the game. Terraforming Mars still will end or become, or the last generation of a game will be triggered when the three main criteria for Mars are complete. Venus is a sideboard where you can go and get terraforming rating from there and do projects related to that and that have requirements of how terraformed it is. But it is not required to terraform the game. Okay, it can be ignored and you can just terraform Mars like you have the whole time. And I think that's where the first bit of criticism comes up. It's a board game or board game expansion that is kind of a sideshow. It's not required to terraform the cards or terraform the planet, and the cards that are here are generally considered weak compared to cards from other expansions. Like, there are some city cards like here that only cost $15 and gives you 3 points. You know, that's pretty big. But other than these high point cities, it's not really powerful. Sometimes you can get some good synergies. The biggest level of complexity comes with this element they call floaters. If you understand how microbes work, it's basically reskinned microbes, but it refers to infrastructure in the atmosphere of planets, specifically in this expansion, Venus. Though the concept is used in future expansions, I think the expansion is good. Okay, don't get me wrong, that is controversial sometimes. Online people do like to use Venus as a punching bag. And I think it's good because it adds in, you know, just more variety of cards. Some cards are interesting. You know, you get more choices with some of them. Some of them do Venus stuff. Science is a little bit stronger with some of the things that lined up for that. But it's good expansion, right? The corporations are interesting. You know, Vron, You can reuse the action of a blue card a second time a generation. That can be very strong. I've seen Manutech completely blow up games. It's whenever you gain production of a resource, you gain that increased production as resources immediately, stuff like that. So there's a lot of fun here, don't get me wrong. It's just kind of a mixed bag. But the reason I'm so okay and would still recommend Venus is that it's for people that are ready to toe in the water, next level of complexity. Let's add a little bit more to the game. Let's make it, honestly, it looks more complex because there's a whole other board to terraform, but in reality, functionally, it's very easy to grasp compared to some of the expansions we have coming. But what I was about to say, the reason I'm happier to recommend it is because if you're getting other expansions, specifically colonies, they add many more floater cards that are powerful and synergistic. And all of a sudden, a lot of these Venus cards that kind of were weak to begin with have things that begin to synergize with it and becomes more and more powerful in different ways. And that just adds an extra little bit of dynamic, a little bit more of a different strategy. And, you know, if Terraforming Mars is great for anything, it's the idea that there's no right path to victory. You can pursue, you know, a plant strategy. You can pursue TR. You can pursue points on cards. You can pursue science. You can now pursue Venus and other side gigs like that where you can just go and get a little bit of income. There's a lot of fun stuff here with, you know, requirements that you need Earth tags and Venus tags, right? You need to change things up. You need to have your terraforming rating pretty high already to get a little bit more income. You need, you know, a tag of all three different, so a Jovian, an Earth, and a Venus, right? Like, I think that it reinforces the themes, and it's pretty, I don't know, it's pretty cool. It's good. I would not recommend this as your first expansion. I really think that Preludes, Hellas, and Elysium are the first, like, very low complexity, improves the game greatly. I think Venus is an expansion you get maybe of the 5, you get it 4th, right? You go and you get Colonies, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and then maybe you double back onto Venus. Or if you're not ready for Colonies, because we're going to get into it, it's more complicated, you do Venus and then you roll that into Colonies. But either way, as a 3rd or 4th out of 5, obviously it's not the highest rated, but it is good. And I'm going to end it there because I'm just going to keep repeating myself over and over again. I think at this point, you've got my message. It's fun. Interact with it. Give it a go. Despite the community maybe saying that it's less so. Hello, and welcome to Colonies. Okay, now don't get too blown away by what I'm looking at here. Oh wow, this thing got distorted. These are all of the colonies that you can add to the game. Now, in the actual game, they look like these. They're little discs, and they'll have little white cubes on them. And here you can see a spaceship that is for the white player, though in reality, there are these little triangular pieces, and you slot your cube into it to say that this is my fleet. And you can get more fleets over the course of the game, but you start with 1. Now, what do you do with these? Well, you can do a new action, and this sadly is distorted, but you can do this trade. You can also do a new standard project, which is build a colony, but we'll talk about that in a second. So trade is not a standard project, and you can do it as an action on your turn using one of your fleets. You spend $9, 3 energy, or 3 titanium, and you're going to move your fleet to a planet and collect resources, resetting this tracker down. What do I mean by that? Is when you fly here, and if this cube is on the 4 track, or on the 4 slot, you will get trade income times this thing here, which as we can see is titanium. Boom, you will collect 4 titanium. Now, this gets interesting because if a player, 1 second as I go and grab a green cube, has a colony on this planet, they will receive a colony bonus. In this case, they will receive an additional titanium. If you're trading with a place that has your own colonies, you also get this bonus. Now, I started with that in as an example, and this will restart all the way down to as low as it can go. So a place with a lot of colonies will reset to higher numbers faster and be more powerful. So awesome. Here we go. Tons of colonies. In any given game, there's only going to be two colonies. Sorry. There's going to be a colony for every player plus 2. So you won't have a mind flood of decisions, and every generation these resources on the colonies will build up and build up until somebody trades. What's great about the colonies is that in Terraforming Mars, they are complicated. I just kind of went through and explained it to you, but there's kind of some minutia, and some of them will go and they'll give you money, other ones will give you cards, other ones will give you plants, but some of them start giving you microbes and floaters, and this one gives you productions. So let's not mind flood anyone too quickly here. Basically, this is another sideboard, but in reality it's many little sideboards. As you can see, I've got plenty of colonies here. I love my colonies. And they're going to reshape the game based on which ones are in play. And what I mean by reshape is it gives you another strategy that you can pursue in Terraforming Mars. I made that point in my Venus segment, and now I'm saying it again in the colonies one. Except depending on your friend group or the meta, like with the people I play with, colonies are so highly contested that people often spend $17 on a standard project to build them early, because as they get built up, they become more and more powerful, and then people are flying to them consistently, meaning they pay out more. So it's a very powerful strategy, and at the same time, I've seen people ignore colonies completely, only ever sometimes flying to them and not building any colonies, and still being successful, because those were the cards that they had, those are the strategies they pursued, and the synergies they went after. So colonies gives you an olive branch of something that you can interact with and kind of compete over, but it's not mandatory. What I really like about it is that that word compete. Like, you're fighting for potential colony spaces, you're fighting because only one fleet can trade with a colony per generation, which means in Terraforming Mars, you've now created a new way in which players are going to interact. Because in the past, most of your interactions will be with cards like this, which, as you can see, has minus plant in red, meaning, oh wow, you're another player in the game? I guess I'll attack you by destroying your plants or stealing your production, which feels pretty mean and absurd. It can really pull a player that isn't doing so great to begin with out of contention for winning the game. Right? It's really one of those feels bad things, and a lot of people, especially new players that aren't aware of how risky the plant strategy is, they get a little bit salty over it, and with good reason. It really sucks to put a lot of time and effort into something just for the friends at the table that you're playing with to destroy your destroy what you're going after. So colonies are a way of people interfacing that isn't so destructive or eye for an eye. It's like, oh, I'm going to go there on my first turn so that you can't, or I'm going to go here so you really want to trade with that, but now that I have a colony there, I'm going to get benefits from you doing what you want to do. So it's a little bit of give and take. Everyone kind of benefits from it. It's not a tear each other down. So that's a lot of fun. It gives new strategies. It is higher complexity than something like Venus that just adds in a new type of microbe, basically, like a floater. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And if we come up here and look at the corporations, you have the first corporation that introduced changing the value of cards. So this card, when buying cards for this company, costs 5 instead of 3. Ooh, very fun. Some of them start with, plant and animal stuff that they can try and gather. Other ones get income for engaging with these colony mechanics. There's more cards that are powerful, like Earth cards, where they synergize per number of tags. They reduce cost. They just give you income for very low whatever. So that's the first major change. I think Earth synergizes even more in the following expansions. There are also way more science cards that are valuable. For example, here's one that adds floaters to any card. That's powerful in that it benefits any of the floater strategies in colonies, but also benefits any of the floater strategies in the Venus cards, for example. And then other ones are cost reduction. Everybody, I think, that plays somewhat competitive Terraforming Mars knows that adding up a lot of science tags and getting a lot of card draw and cost reduction is surreal. And that cost reduction on space tags really benefits this expansion because this adds a lot of space tags. So in this expansion, Earth, science, and space, much more powerful throughout the game. It adds colonies. It is a very highly rated expansion. It's not as high as Preludes. And I think that Hellas and Elysium does more at a lesser complexity cost. Like, it's not as complex a change to spice things up, but Colonies should definitely be high on your list for next expansions after the first two. It really comes down to, if you want to engage with these, you know, arguably more complicated mechanics than those in Venus, I say you do Colonies first and then Venus. If your group is maybe looking for a little bit more light stuff, you know, they like Terraforming Mars, but they find it a little bit heavy or mathy already, then go ahead and stick to Venus. I think that one's a safer bet for those that don't want to deal with all these extra little pieces and bobs moving around, because it can, especially when someone's first learning the game or on their first or second try, it can be very intimidating for sure. So this is fun. The cards are fun. The corporations are good. You know, they don't scream out to me, other than Poseidon being probably one of the most powerful corporations in the game with Colonies, but that's besides the point. Otherwise, I think I've well articulated who this is for and who should get it. So moving on to the next one. Hello. Just before starting Turmoil, which is the next stop on this journey, I'm still in Tabletop Simulator because it makes the most sense. I just wanted to point out that when I showed off Colonies just now, I didn't lay out every single card like I had for the previous expansions. There are 49 project cards in Colonies, as well as 49 in Venus. So if you like the quantity of cards in Venus, I didn't have the space to show off all the Colonies and all the Colony cards, because Colony cards, there's a lot of them, and they're a lot of fun. So, moving on, welcome to Turmoil, and I've gone ahead and set out a whole bunch of cubes on the board because I think it's a little bit easier to explain. So, first of all, Turmoil is an expansion made for those, I forget what they call it, advanced level players. People who have played a lot of Terraforming Mars and are ready to deal with the complexity of a whole political level laid on top of it. Okay, this introduces delegates that you'll get that you can pay for and add to this area, and what you're trying to do is push different political parties into power for a generation so that you get benefits as they go into power, and then for the remainder of the generation they will do certain benefits. The one that starts the game out, you can see here, is the greens. I haven't switched it or anything. And the effects of the greens are that whenever you place a greenery, you get a $4 rebate. You know, that's pretty powerful if you're like playing as Ecoline or something. Whereas the opposite can be true for something like Reds. Reds is a faction that whenever you try and do a terraform, or get a TR, you have to pay $3 more to complete the action, or you cannot do it. So any attempt at terraforming the planet in this generation is very costly. Okay, which is really good for people that are trying to stall the games, which works with different corporations and stuff. So I don't want to get into all of them, but basically some of them make it so that, you know, titanium's worth more. Other ones allow you to do an action that buys cards. Other ones let you do actions that buy energy and heat, yada yada. How does it work? Well, basically, there's this little, for you, it will be one of the classic sugar cubes in the physical board game. This goes to denote the current party that'll go into power at the end of the generation, which has the highest number of delegates. Okay, and for the record, I just want to say that these blue delegates are for the blue player, yellow for the yellow, red for the red, but gray are neutral delegates that'll get played out over the course of the game. And basically, if blue were to add 2 more delegates, they would only be tied at 4. so the sugar cube would not move to them. But if you added in yellow or even another blue or any other cube, then bam, whoop, whoop, whoop. Good stuff. First of all, whoever has majority of the cubes is the next one lined up to go into power. And then within that faction, or any faction, the one who has the majority of the cubes is the leader of the party. Okay? Just bear with me. And then when the generation is done, this new faction will come into power. We will change this to the whatever. These cubes will go away back into a bag, and this delegate will go in, and all these cubes will go away, and this will move to somewhere else. Okay? The reason all this is important is A, you get those round benefits. B, you get money for every associated tag down here. So Unity, Venus, Earth, and Jovian tags will give you a $1 extra production. Okay? And then, before any of that occurs, you also have to look at, you know, what is the event for the generation? So now all of a sudden we're looking at, oh my god, there is going to be a reduction in the heat level by 2 steps. We're going to have to walk back the heat and then terraform even harder in the future to end this game. Not only that, but the influence you get for playing that whole political game and being in the lead of party and chairman and stuff, don't worry about the numbers specifically, allows you to draw cards. In the future, you know, every card will give you money plus influence. Every event you've played will give you money. These are just randomly coming out. You know, here you're gonna get Earth stuff, and these will flow over the edge of the board and start resolving. So you kind of have a little bit of headway on what's gonna happen. But players sometimes, in my experience, are very not into the idea of not knowing what's coming up, because Terraforming Mars is very much an open information game other than the cards that you specifically have and your opponents have. So this adds another wrench into the machine where apparently this one here is going to cause you to lose $3 for every 5 TR you've accumulated over 10, right? So if your strategy was to end the game quick and build up and TR the planet, terraform it, all of a sudden this event is going to tear you back down. And there's very few ways of mitigating it. Sometimes you can with influence, other times influence gives you something else. And it's always things you have to look out for. There's a couple of really big ones I'd like to show. Like some of them give you titanium, some of them just give you money, some of them give you resources. Some of them make you lose $4 for every tile you have adjacent to oceans. But specifically, some of them make you lose a whole bunch of terraforming rating because there's like wars on Earth and stuff like that. And there's Turmoil, as is the name of the expansion. So I think that you know enough about this, not enough to play it, obviously. I have to sit down and actually give you a teach. But you know that there's, you know, these extra delegates that you're going to try to be putting out. You're going to be buying them. You're going to be trying to manipulate this political track so that it benefits you more than it's benefiting your opponents. And that's going to change up what generations you want to push to build your greeneries, or push to not terraform the planet, or push to place on the board, what have you. It's definitely an extra layer of complexity. It is the most complex, and it is the only expansion that's I've heard described popularly as sometimes we play with it, sometimes we play without it. It is not an expansion that you will want to play with every time, though I do really enjoy it, because it is a different game. One of the things I failed to mention is that you will constantly be losing 1 TR every generation. So whereas most games, you're constantly getting stronger as the game goes on, Turmoil is very much swimming upriver into the current and trying not to sink. You're always going to be a little bit stronger in the next round as long as you get some income or something, but you can very much get swept away while your opponents thrive based on the events that come up that happen to favor them, based on them having the money to then manipulate the politics so that that benefits them, and then add that on top of trying to fund colonies and traveling and trading, all the cards and science things that you want to do and the different synergies. It is wild. It is a lot of fun. And then I think that Colonies, or not Colonies, but Turmoil adds the most interesting spectrum of corporations. You have a corporation like Terra Labs, which only starts with $14 and you lose a TR, but you have tags and buying cards costs $1 now instead of 3 or sometimes 5. You have something like the Illuminati is what I'm going to call these guys, where you get to collect money by being in all of the parties and pulling the strings. You have a company here that you get a point every generation. You do not terraform the planet at all, and you get $6. But you lose 2 TR out the gate, and now you're a player sitting at the table trying not to terraform the planet, not like just holding the game back. You know, lots of fun. This one here lets you trash your production to get short-term gains. Just a blast. And then the most memed one that I love the most is an insurance company, where at the start of the game, you put up your income by 4 steps, and every other player at the table has to lose their income by 4 steps. But from now on in the future, if players get attacked, whether their plants get blown up or animals get killed or someone steals a production, you, if you have the money as the insurance company, need to pay out the victim for 3 ME. So like really does add so many interesting levels to the game. But by far, stay away from this expansion unless you have at least, I want to say, 10 games of Terraforming Mars. Before I played this, had like over 100, maybe 200 games of Terraforming Mars because I'm just an addict like that and have friends that like to play it. But yeah, it's definitely an expansion that adds a lot. And if you're into making the game heavier, so that you get a lot more payout, this is fun, but it adds more randomness, it adds more factions which can synergize in overpowered ways, and sometimes people can run away with the game because they just happen to have all of the things go right. Sometimes you'll play Turmoil, and every event that will come out will be negative and harmful and drag you down. In the first 5 generations, you'll just be struggling and swimming upriver. Other times it'll be super generous and give you tons of stuff. So either way, it's lots of fun, but it is definitely to be reserved for players with a lot of experience with Terraforming Mars for sure. Though, what we do if we're playing the game and we don't want to play with Turmoil because someone doesn't want to, or we don't have enough time for the extra added game length, we'll often still add corporations like Terra Labs, which, doesn't rely on mechanics of Turmoil. It's just a fun corporation and stuff like that. I don't think there are also 28 Turmoil project cards, which I meant to lay out, but I did not. They again synergize with the companies, or not the companies, the political parties. And it adds in a whole bunch of, of more scientific cards that now give you more production and upfront resources, scientific cards that give you more influence, a card that increases the value of titanium, so now there isn't only advanced alloys, and then there's another card that adds the value of steel. So there's lots of stuff here. A lot of it plays into the political thing. A lot of it requires that different political factions are in party or that you have lots of influence in those parties. It's a lot of fun. You should do it. It's hard for me to, I play so much of this game, it's hard for me to not recommend this expansion. But I do that with the heavy caveats of you need to want to play a heavier game and have a friend group that's okay with extra added elements of randomness. So, if that's the bill for you, you have to self-select for this, I guess. All right, on to the next one. Hello, and welcome to the big head portion of this discussion, I guess. Before I move on to the next piece, which is going to be third-party stuff, I want to say that you might be familiar with these. These are the little production boards. You put your cube on it and you go, oh, I have a production of, this many monies, yay. And then you stack them if you have tons and tons of it. Which, I've played games where you get up to like 60 some income because of all the new synergistic cards once you add in all the things and one player is trying not to terraform so the game goes extra long. stacking cubes on the 10 slot does not work anymore. And the Turmoil expansion adds in a new board. I do not have the Turmoil expansion. My friend does, which is what we play with a lot. But these days, not so much because you can't visit anyone. But that's besides the point. And yeah, so they finally added in a first-party, solution, which is a tracker board, much like a third-party one that I would like to show you. There is this one here that I have that is wooden. I got this from a friend. You get to put your cubes into the slots and slide them, and then there's slots up here for plus 10, plus 10, plus 30, plus whatever, and that is really great. This is a wooden one. You do not get this in Turmoil. You get a one that is a little bit more sleek and whatnot, just different. There's also overlays which function the same way, except you just need to put them down in the correct spot, and then you can move your productions around. And that's because if you're going to be playing any amount of Terraforming Mars, someone bumps the table, someone hits a thing, a cube goes flying. It's great to be able to track where was my production, where's all my money. It holds it into one spot, seeing as so many of the cubes are context sensitive, right? If a cube's on a microbe card, that refers to this is a microbe resource. If a cube's in your money area, that's a money, but if that slides into your steel, all of a sudden it's a steel, right? Additionally, there are third-party stuff, like I got this for Christmas one year from my sister. This is a 3D printed city. This is Stropolis from the Venus expansion, and you get to put a cube on it, and it actually fits. It has a hexagonal ground. It's a city tile, Gyropolis, Maxwell Base, and Luna Metropolis. These are actually all 3D printed to look like the art in the cards, which, here's another thank you, Cassandra. You're also thoughtful. And the next third-party thing I want to say, and this one is one that I did not discover till moving here and meeting a new group of board gamers, was these cubes. These are, I forget what they are, 4mm cubes, and they're colored in different ways. You can choose your own colors. Why the hell do you need to print off or order cubes, colored cubes? Well, that's because if you take these cubes, right, and you take the red ones, for example, and there's 19 of them, and you put them all the way up the heat track on every single bump, and then you take the green ones and you put them all the way across on the oxygen bump. You take 9 blue ones, you set them beside the ocean. Every time a player gains a terraforming rating from doing one of those actions, they take the cube on that track. So then, when they go, did I take the heat bump or my TR bump for this, or when did I get this? Am I at the right spot? Especially in Turmoil, where you're going back a TR every generation. Are you in the right spot or not? Well, just look at your pile of cubes. I still mine in rows of 5. Oh, I should have 5 TR. I've done 3 heat bumps in Ocean, and we use a black for just a blank TR you get from cards. I should be at 25, right? Or in Turmoil, we're on round 2, so you've gone down 2 steps, so I should be at 23. That is a huge quality of life improvement, especially if the TRs get bumped around. You know exactly what everyone is supposed to be at, and you also get to know where did it come from. Did they get it from fighting for political power? Did they get it from terraforming the planet? Did they get it from doing whatever they might have done? So those are 3 additions to the game. I definitely think 3D printed cities are cool, but not required. They are freaking, awesome. These cubes are a huge quality of life improvement. I don't ever play without them if I can. But the absolute best improvement to the game is your boards for tracking your resources and moving things along. A lot of them will have a slot over here so that you can easily shift your energy into heat, but that's just a small nitpick of this board, which I think is honestly a really high quality and great one. So perfect, awesome, good stuff. And the very last thing I want to do is the conclusion, which is there are 5 expansions. I've talked about the first ones, Hellas, Elysium. Those are definitely high on the list, but they are after Preludes, which are the highest rated, greatest one, awesome to do. Next up, you have Colonies and Venus, which are very equivalent. I think Colonies is a better expansion, but it comes with more complexity. Venus is an easier to grasp expansion and honestly benefits from the colony card. So I would usually argue to get Colonies first, but if you're looking for a more simple experience, do the Venus. And then finally, there's Turmoil, the 5th expansion, and by far the one you should buy last. It is a fantastic expansion, has great cards, does whatever. If you like Terraforming Mars and you want to dive deeper into it, it's where you want to be, but it's labeled as for advanced players for a reason. You need to build up to the skills to understand all of the dynamics and the stuff. Right, I think it's better to deal with the game on easy mode because there can be a lot of math and mechanics in it already, and then when you're ready, you move into the game where it's actually trying to actively punish you. So that's a lot of fun. Third-party mechanics, I just went through them, but a board, which you'll get if you buy Turmoil, to be fair, that helps track all your resources things, colored cubes, and finally, your 3D pieces for the board and all your other little swag things. I hope you enjoy me going through all the expansions and the stuff. I had a great time doing it. And if you have any other questions, please feel free, reach out, let me know what you're thinking, and I'll hopefully be able to respond to you in no time. Cheers. See you next time.